Good morning. I think we're probably going to be small. Usually when we get toward the end of the school year, the group is very small because our moms are doing a lot of things that are end of the year school stuff on Fridays. Parties with some groups of other families or co-ops or things like that. So since so many of our moms are homeschooling moms. So we may be small, but we'll still have such a wonderful discussion this morning. And I'm very curious to find out where we're going, what direction we're going. I brought books. I always bring a stack of books, but then I look to you moms to maybe direct where we're going. If there's something on your heart that you want to share or ask about or talk about, then I turn this part of the time over to you so you can bring anything up like that. And as always, I'll give you a few minutes just to kind of think about it. And if nothing comes to mind right off the bat, then we'll start chatting. And usually along the way, something comes up that feels like it's where we need to go.
I'll share something small from this morning.
Great. Hi, Melanie.
Hi. So this morning, my girls and I were just sitting around the couch, and I don't remember how it started, but they just told me to close my eyes, and all of us were to just be in imagination land and make up stuff. And we were talking about being at Yosemite and playing with unicorns, and there's a mermaid in the water, and we're flying on the Pegasus over the mountains and the trees, um and it was just fun to hear their ideas. And but after a while I was like, I don't know what else I can come up with to add to this. And the thought came to me to play the harp while they kept going. And it was fun that I could come to something that I was interested in, is my strength. I mean, not that I'm amazing at it yet because I'm still new to it, but music is something that I care about deeply, and that I could continue my enjoyment and just have it add a layer of depth to what they were already doing and enjoying. So that was fun.
I love that. That is beautiful. And I think that's an important lesson to learn, that maybe the action we think is necessary in the moment isn't the action. For you to be directed to something else, and that was more in something that you enjoyed also, and that thing that you enjoyed became a big part of what they were doing. I love that.
Yeah.
We have a drama unfolding in our backyard right now. It is crazy. So I told you about the crows that have been plaguing us. Anyway, yesterday my husband was able to actually shoot one. He's only been trying to scare them away, but he actually made direct contact with one, and he read online to take that crow and spread it out in the yard so that the others could see and just know that this isn't a place for them to come. And there's a whole like murder of crows outside flying over this dead crow, just like checking it out. So we're having a very crazy nature experience in our backyard right now. It's just, I'm on the second on the second floor, right? So it's like it's right in front of me. I keep getting distracted by these crows. Interesting. Our world is full of interesting things. And just the other day, my husband was saving a bird. That's more up his alley. There's a little baby that needed to be rescued from a cat, and so he did, and eventually reunited it with its parents and all the good things. And so this is weird for him to be on the other side of that. So anyway, okay, sorry for my departure there. Other thoughts, other ideas of things that are on your heart? And I was just reading about imagination, Melanie, so that's just perfect. And I was thinking about it, yes, it's so important. We need that. We need to encourage and foster that in ourselves and in our children or grandchildren. And then remember, if this is a topic for today, and I don't know if it is or isn't, but last week we were talking about stories and we were talking about history, and we ended up talking a little bit about family history. And Laura, who has some really good experiences there, had to go and wasn't able to be on with us. And right now she's, for the moment anyway, she's sitting peacefully in her backyard. So she might be able to share some thoughts that she had. I know she was eager to share that she didn't get to. So.
For the moment is so true. No, it was just exciting what wasn't Lindsay was sharing how they had gotten into family history. And I'm not somebody that can sit has much experience like sitting down and finding dates and finding people and putting it in. We have a very, very full tree. And but it amazes me every time I go to sit down to work on it. I always say a prayer before, and then I'm led to something that I have many experiences where, like one time I kept going back to this one uncle, great uncle. And it was like, okay, all of his, everything's good. His dates are good. Like, why do I keep getting drawn back to this name? And then one day it took like 2 weeks of going back to his name. It dawned on me he didn't have a wife in the program that I was using. And so I called my mom. I was like, oh, he doesn't have a wife. And so she helped me find his wife and then their children and then his wife's parents and their parents. And then eventually it connected to other people's trees. But that's my, I really don't get into the family history side like that work, but the stories are what I love and have made family history work come alive for me is, and why family search is so amazing is because people can attach these sources and stories that were carried on in that line for whatever reason, but not like I was never shared the stories with so like my mom is the oldest child, but her mom was the youngest of like 13. And so she was never told the pioneer stories. She was like, oh yeah, there's pioneers there, but so my mom didn't know the stories. So I didn't know the stories. And the same thing with my husband. So when we were going to go to Nauvoo and, we wanted to see who of our grandparents crossed the plains, we were shocked to find what we found. And then the stories of the lives of those people were just amazing. And not just pioneer stories, but I found, I had a grandpa go in 1850, go from New York to Los Angeles, just like 30 years old, him and his wife and what few children they had at that point, loaded up in a wagon and crossed the whole United States to like start a new life. And it's amazing to see anyway, so for us, learning their stories have made them come alive to us again and the things that they did. And anyway, there's something about knowing your grandparents and their stories and finding strength in where you came from. So that's what I love is the stories of family history.
Right. And I love that is something that's history for us, right? It's history for our children, things that they can learn in it. They're connected to it, so they respond. It's been fun to watch your children be excited and share some of those stories. So that's been fun too.
Yeah, it is fun when their eyes light up to be like, oh my gosh, my grandpa did that. Like, that's my grandpa. And like Logan was like, I think 8 at the time that we learned one of the stories. And he was just like, so excited, like telling everybody, you know what my grandpa did? Like, so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
I love that. And what a fun thing to add to what you're learning with your children. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, in history, then we're studying like the Wild West or the Civil Wars or even World War II, when so my sister-in-law's grandmother was a nurse in Hawaii when the bombs hit. And so to like have perspective, it brings all those history stories to life when you know of somebody that lived through that time.
Sure. Right. I mean, you can make those connections. Like this is happening at the same time that this was happening. And so then when you can tie those things together, making those connections, those stories become much more significant.
Yes.
Oh, I love that. And I love the idea of sharing those stories with people that you just bump into because they are interesting. Last week, it was fun to have Michelle telling us about sharing this little bit of information she learned about Helen Keller and the people who were her contemporaries, which were Mark Twain and Thomas Edison, for her to just share that with her hairdresser, just out of the blue. But her hairdresser loved that she was sharing that and didn't know those things and thought that was really interesting. I think we downplay what we know. They can just be little tidbits here and there, just little gems, right, that we've picked up. And that little gem is enough to share. And you don't have to know all the rest of the story and everything else surrounding that. You never know what that might bring to a person that you share it with. And then you sharing obviously helps you retain that information more. Yeah, Lindsay.
I was at baseball last night and a friend was there and I was like multitasking. I was watching the game and keeping score and reading Mark Twain's Joan of Arc. So I was like just getting into it. And I'm like, this is so good. And so I told my friend sitting next to me, I'm like, have you read this? Like, have you read Mark Twain's Joan of Arc? And he's like, no, but I've been watching. And he was like, there's this series on YouTube that like brings these people to life and it tells their story while it like changes their face, like to make them look like they would live today, or just these cool things. And he's like, there's one coming out on Joan of Arc. He's like, that's so cool, and maybe I'll read the book. And it was just like sparked this little quick conversation of like, isn't it so cool to learn about these people that that lived so long ago, that just have these amazing lives. And I shared a little bit from like the intro about Joan of Arc. I'm like, this is just incredible. So it was just kind of fun to like share that little moment of like, this is really cool stuff.
I love that you did that. And I could tell that you did because you came alive when I mentioned that. In the background, it was fun to just watch your face. Like, oh, I have an example of that. I did that. So how fun and how interesting that it tied into something that person knew, just that upcoming series. So, and that makes me curious. I need to find that on YouTube. So, okay. Anybody else have experiences with maybe just sharing a little bit with somebody?
I have something I feel to share with kind of a question attached.
Sure.
Sorry, hopefully I can get through without too much crying. So on Monday was the 10th anniversary of my daughter being born and dying. And in the early days and months and even around a year, I had some spiritual experiences where I felt connected to her spirit. And since then, through the years, I've come to feel really awkward. I think in part because it's hard to feel connected to her. Like she didn't live long enough to have stories to record, and memories to have. And so, not really knowing her spirit that well, but still being her mother and still having this like eternal family relationship, it's hard to like process what our roles are to each other, I guess, or to still feel like she has a current place in our family and like what can that look like right now, if that makes sense. And I've kind of felt guilt through the years as feeling like I'm not as connected to her as I should feel, but also feeling guilty like I shouldn't expect to, sense her presence or something. But I had the thought this week, with family history, we're encouraged to do family history, not just, I think, for the records, for the numbers and the dates, but to have our hearts turn to them and their hearts turn to us. And so it should be an acceptable, good thing for me to have that desire to connect with her. I don't know if any of you have any similar kind of way to relate, but I guess it's kind of a vague question, but just a question of how you find that connection to any loved ones that have already passed on, other than just their stories.
Right, right. Because you feel like you don't have those stories. Okay, I'm going to turn that to the moms first. I have thoughts, but I'm going to share Mary.
Yeah, so as you were sharing, I had a niece that, let's see, her birthday, she was born the day before, the week before the C-section. She ended up passing away because there got a knot in the cord. And so it's not my personal experience, but yes, I was, it was my brother's and my sister-in-law's little girl. And so I can't relate, I haven't gone through the experience besides miscarriages, but the thought that came to me is, write her letters. I'm sure she has, I'm sure you gave her a name, and just write her letter saying, hey, dear daughter, I miss you, how are things? How are you, how are you doing? Just, I don't know, just share your feelings with her through letters. You can even have a little journal for her or whatever. That's just my thoughts.
That's really sweet, Mary. And Ida, I saw Ida's head nodding. I knew you'd have something to share.
So my experience is not the same, although I did have a niece that passed away about the same time, like 38 weeks, because of a knot in the cord as well. And my brother and his wife, one of the things that they do is that they have every year they try to do something special on her birthday to help build that connection with her and to think about her. And they have a special box that has little treasures and things that they got from people and that they got themselves when she passed away, and they take those out regularly and talk about them, But also it's kind of a different experience, but I had sort of some of the similar feelings, maybe. So my oldest daughter that we adopted, she's 19, and she had an opportunity to go and work for the summer, and then she's planning to try to go on a mission in the fall. And I was pondering that thought, like what would that, how would that be if that's a good idea? And I was like, she hasn't had very much time with our family. She's only been with us for 2 years, and that's not very much time in the grand, even in just the length of her life, right? And to kind of just be taking off now, I feel like I don't have as much of a connection with her as I would like, and that she doesn't have as much of a connection with our family as I would like, and that's hard. So I'm like, I don't know, is this a good thing? And I was kind of going back and forth about that. But one thing is that those children that we have that we don't get to raise, Heavenly Father, through the brethren, have said that we will get the opportunity to raise them. I don't know what that will look like. But also the thought came to me that as you were talking, and I was thinking about that, like, we have to think about the relationships we have as eternal, right? Like, we're an eternal family. And so our children are not going to be with us for their whole lives, but we're going to continue building and working on that relationship. So even though my daughter, we're actually going to be sealed tomorrow, 2 of the girls, so that's super exciting. But thinking about that, and like that I can continue to work on that relationship. And so maybe right now you don't have the opportunity to like connect with her in the same way that you would with your other children, and I don't think you should feel guilty about that, because it's not your fault, obviously. But that you can like I love what Mary shared about like writing her letters and finding ways to just think about her, and like kind of like you would for one of your kids that goes off to college or is moved away or whatever. You think about them, maybe you write them a letter, even though you can call them on the phone, and try to like that you have that in your mind. You haven't forgotten her, obviously. She's still a part of you, part of your family. And then like even when we adopted our girls into our family, it was interesting because like obviously my other kids weren't used to that, them in our family. And so it's changed our family, but it's changed it in many beautiful ways. And the same will happen in the eternities, right? Like children that have passed on that we will get to embrace into our family, like have them with us and experience that relationship. I think that just continuing to look forward to that. I mean, obviously the feelings that you have are going to be completely different than mine, but just some thoughts from just that, my thoughts about that experience with my daughters.
I love that, Ida. I love that you can see those similarities there, because they are, because these are relationships and connections. So I love that. That's really sweet. Lindsay, did you have something?
I do. It's not the same. But I was really close with my grandma. But then again, I had a lot of stories with my grandma and these things to connect memories to. So it's a different experience. But there's things in nature that every time I see them, I think of her. And so it kind of keeps her in my thoughts all the time. So I know you didn't have a lot of stories with your little girl, but there's things that maybe you can connect to nature and be like, every time I see like whatever it is in nature, a butterfly or something, I'm going to think of her, and just connect those things that we see all the time. So every time I see a full moon or a hummingbird, I know my grandma is with me and we're watching it together. So it just kind of brings her a little closer. So I don't know if that's something that would work or not, but just connecting it with something that you see all the time to keep her in your thoughts.
I really like that. Oh, Melanie, I hope that part helps too. I think that's beautiful. And there might be things that if you reflect back, that even during the time that you were carrying her, because that's a big part of the time that you're with her as a mother. So the memories, the stories, the things that you remember from that time, or maybe going back to journals or calendars that remind you about that time. But I there are just so many memories and stories that you could connect with her now as you think back on that. And then I love the idea of creating new memories by finding something that you feel, like Lindsay suggested, connects you to her. And then the things that Ida and Mary said, just these ways that you could find and realize you do have some stories with her and you do have some real connections with her, even though you haven't had yet time with her here. I love the idea of writing letters to her, even just sharing with her what's going on in your family now, to help you feel connected to her. I think that desire for connection is real and good and important. And so I love that you were willing to ask that question, a very sensitive, tender subject. So I don't know, does anybody else have more thoughts on that? Melanie, go ahead, Lindsay, sorry.
Just along with the writing letters, I think just in your alone time in the car or whatever, just having conversations with her. I mean, we know that the spirit world is here, that she's close, she's right there. Like you could just talk to her, and even though it can't be a two-way conversation, to just be able to say, hey, like this is, yeah, like what you would write in a letter. This is what we're doing today. Like we had fun doing this, just kind of sharing those joys with her in that way. I do that with my grandma as I do different things, and just talk to her.
Yeah, maybe sometimes when you play for her. I think just like what you started out with, Melanie, your story about your girls wanting to play with you and have this imagination thing. And when you ran out of, couldn't find any other ideas to do that, the spirit told you, do this thing that you do naturally. So maybe you're looking for a connection in a way that isn't going to work, but opening your heart to a different way, one that is natural for you, might provide that kind of connection that you so obviously so desperately seek to have with her. I think as mamas, most of us probably have had those miscarriages and understand that connection that you begin to feel. And then as time goes by, sometimes it does lessen and you wonder if you're doing something wrong, if because you're not feeling those same feelings. So I hope these comments from all these friends have helped. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts and ideas. That helps stir my mind to some things I can do.
Yeah. And I love Lindsay's comment she made. Maybe your promptings to play the harp are kind of prompted by her. So that's very sweet. Oh, this whole experience of being a mother. There's so many things that are connected to that. So many lessons learned, so many experiences. And they run the whole range of emotions, don't they? So many good things have been coming up lately about mothers and motherhood and questions about it. And there's just been a lot of that lately. The world needs mothers. The world needs the people around us need to be mothered, need to be nurtured. And we get to do that. I feel like things are changing, and I hope you're open. I feel like all of you are being prepared for the work that's ahead. I know some of you are really feeling that. But there's a very important work to do, and it is moving forward, and it's starting to go faster and faster as we are kind of laying out this foundation, this groundwork for it, and are ways for us to go and share this whole idea of the spirit of Balaam. This dream and this vision is real, and we need to find our place in it. What are we going to do? What's our role? Yeah, Ida.
You guys, I'm so excited. Okay, first of all, we are going to get sealed tomorrow, and I'm so happy about that. Like, it's going to be so awesome. Sorry. A lot of emotion coming out. Anyways.
No, and we all are going to be with you in spirit. I hope you know that.
I wish you could be there, but like, I know you are. You totally are. That makes me so happy. Anyways, I told you, I think a couple months ago now, that like some of the ladies here, they've been wanting to buy some land. Some people that are in a co-op, and they're homeschoolers, and they're into Well-Educated Heart, and we were like, we want to buy some land, we want a homestead, and we were looking for land everywhere in this area. And then like last week, we're like, we can't find land in the Austin area. It's too expensive. And it's not good land for growing stuff. And we started looking, and then one of the ladies like, what about Missouri? And I'm like, I hadn't thought about Missouri. And so then we started looking at land in Missouri, and we're like, it was kind of like at this standstill. Like we felt like this is just not right. Like we kept looking and like looking. And then we were just like, Missouri feels really good. And like, we started looking for places there, and we were like, we need to be close to the temple. And there's a temple in Kansas City. And so we were like, we don't want to be like more than an hour from the temple. And we found all these things, and it's just like, it's so funny. Like, like you're looking for something, you're supposed to be doing something, and you keep looking, and then you find the thing that's right, and you're like, yes, okay, this is the right place. And it's like felt like that in our group. And we're like, okay, this is really like exciting, right? And one of the ladies in our group, she was like, I don't want to leave Austin. And she was like, I just don't know. And we were talking to her, we're like, Andy, your community needs you. You've got to come. And I'm like, just pray about it, And so then the next day she texted us, and she's like, this is what I went to bed thinking about. And she shared this story. And so her dad's mom lived through the Depression, the Great Depression. They lived in California, and he lost his job, and their family ended up traveling with his tent city trying to find work, trying to find food, whatever they could. And she like wore holes in the bottom of her shoes. She would pick greens along the side of the road, whatever she could find to eat. And she was so malnourished that she just had really severe osteoporosis as an adult. And that was her dad's mom, right? Her mom's mom lived on a ranch in New Mexico. And she's like, I don't really remember much about the depression other than I played a lot and we drank a ton of milk because there wasn't anything else, but we had lots of milk. And so Andy's like, I went to bed thinking about those stories and I was like, I want to be like the lady who was on the ranch that had some food. And she's like, I'm in. And she's like that. I felt like that. She's like, she felt like that was Heavenly Father telling her, right? Like giving her guidance. Anyways, so then today, one of the ladies was like, I just read that Marlene's land that she's buying is in Kansas, an hour from Kansas City. I mean, Missouri, in Missouri, an hour from Kansas City. And I was like, what? That's crazy. Anyway, so that was super cool and exciting and like, just like, maybe we'll be neighbors. Maybe, maybe not, or close. But it was so exciting. And like, it's just like the momentum and the excitement that we're feeling, like Heavenly Father, like helping and directing like the group. And it's kind of weird because like as a family or an individual, you pray about stuff and you try to, but I've never really like had to like, I've never worked with a group of people where we're like trying to accomplish something and like we're all trying to pray about it and get guidance. And it's been really interesting to see those things happening and just people like getting impressions and getting that guidance and being like, yeah, you know what? I think this is what we need to do too. Anyways, so that was super cool and exciting to just like, as the conversation is going and when you're talking about that, I'm like, and we've been feeling like this preparation, like just all these things. And like, even my family. So my brother lives here close to me and my parents, and I was talking to my parents about that and they're like, interesting. And I was talking to my brother and my brother's like, I just got laid off from my job. He doesn't necessarily want to move to Missouri. He's not at that point yet, but he was like talking to a friend that he knows and she works for the church. And she's like, have you ever thought about working for the church? And he said, well, no, I haven't, never. And she's like, maybe you should. Then 2 days later, he got a call from a friend in high school. And he's like, hey, didn't know that my brother had been laid off. But he's like, have you ever thought about working for the church? And he's like, no, will you people get off my back already? And so he told him about his other friend. And he's like, I felt like I should call you on Monday and talk to you about that, which is when his other friend called and talked to him. And I didn't, so I'm calling you today. He's like, okay, that's interesting. And then he said, I went to church on Sunday and I shook the bishop's hand. And as the bishop walked away, I felt like the Spirit said, you're done here in this ward. It's time for you to go. And he was like, okay. And these interesting things have been happening with their family that's sort of connected with ours. And I'm not saying that they're going to move to Missouri, but like I was talking to him about it and I said, Andrew, the Lord is preparing you for your mission in life and you're not living it right now. And it's not that the things that you've been doing are bad. They probably are things that have been preparing you for what you're supposed to really be doing with your life. And Heavenly Father's trying to give you some direction on the next step in this journey, right? And I just feel that so strongly, like when you're trying to live the gospel, like Heavenly Father has a mission for us to do, all of us. And it's not just necessarily one thing, right? But like lots of things. But I feel like sometimes we have a life mission, right? Like that is the most important thing, our most important work that we have to do. And just the little things, like there's always like, I feel like little guideposts along the way, like, okay, you need to learn this thing. Now you need to meet this person. Now you need to, anyways, I'm rambling, but those are some really cool things that I knew you guys would understand and appreciate too.
Yeah. No, that is beautiful. That's wonderful and very exciting. It feels good to know that you're being prepared. because you feel like, okay, I have something. I'm at least showing that I'm willing to work, willing to do what you want me to do. So I love that. Yeah, Lindsay.
No, I was just marveling at the story. It's just so exciting when things like that happen. Like your heart just swells, like the Lord's directing us. The Lord's directing us. This is exciting. And it's just, I love that. I had just a moment on Monday and I was over at Lori's and we were talking about something and I had one of those like that moment of clarity when you're like, oh, this makes so much sense. And it feels so good to be like filled with, I don't know what that feeling is. Like, I guess it's the Spirit that just makes you recognize like the goodness and I don't know. And like that you have this clear vision of something. It just feels really good.
Mm-hmm. And it feels safe. It feels, it doesn't matter how scary it is or what it's going to require because you realize he's got this. It's his work. And I also love the reminder that I get from a couple of friends saying that what he's doing is different than anything that exists here. It's going to look different. So if you think, well, this doesn't fit into what I know, great. Then you can have a better, more confidence that it's his, that it's not the world's. So don't try to put it into this box because it's never going to fit there. So it's bigger than that. So I love that. And I've heard multiple times from a couple people that you ladies are being prepared for something. And so, it's kind of get ready. So I love that too. Because there's a reason we were put together. This is not just and that we've stayed together, that it continues to move forward and we continue to feed and nurture each other to help us. That's part of our preparation, I think, in whatever it is we're going to do. Yeah, Lindsay.
Oh, I just had the thought when I was looking at that sketch of the Bellam campus this morning, and it has a little spot on there for a grandma's house. And I don't know why the thought came to me that like, this is gonna keep going. I mean, I knew that, but like the thought that like I could be a grandma at the Bellam campus, that like, I don't know, it just hit me. Like this is gonna keep going. And like, it's not that I have to understand it all right now. I don't need to have everything figured out. I keep getting those moments of clarity as to what my part is in all this and how I understand it. And then to think of like being old and gray there at the campus is just exciting.
I'm there. If you want to know what it feels like. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I can't wait to be there, Lori. You're an inspiration.
I'm not. Oh, no, it's exciting. It's beautiful. So if you're feeling in your heart like I need to read this or study this or whatever, do it. Don't think I don't have time for this. I can't fit it in. Do it. Make the time and make it happen. He'll make it happen. Thank you, Ida. Oh, yeah, I'm not old and gray. I'm old and white, but I hide it so you guys can't see it. But it is lovely. Okay, hold on. Just wanted to see. So if you have other things to share. So I was going to say Springfield, Missouri, is another temple site. So yeah, I don't want to live in Missouri. However, I keep having this little feeling like, okay, but you would, right? Yes, I would. So we will see. There have to be other Bellams, all over the place. So won't be the only one, but I'm excited. So this Bellam at Home, have you all read about that? Yes, I know. I've been looking at pictures there. So if you're in the Mighty Network, there's the map of the campus right there. There are just so many things, and this Bellam at Home is beautiful, and it's right, and just so many good things about it. So I'm really, really excited about it. Okay. Just so many good things, and I hope you're all ready. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So things will start kind of flying here over the next few weeks. So there's just a lot of good. And it wouldn't hurt to go back over the Bellam Dream posting, the audio of that, or there's a video, right? The video. Just to kind of refresh in your mind what that's all about, and then pray about what your part is. And if you start feeling like, oh, I kind of have an idea, then, message me and share with me what you're thinking.
Can I share something?
Yes. Hi, Mary.
So last week I was camping with
Yeah.
my sister, my oldest sister. We went down to southern Utah, but on the drive, so she's been homeschooling, since her oldest, who's now 23, since, she was kindergarten age. And as we were talking, so we talked a lot about homeschool and other things. And I said, have you heard of Marlene Peterson or Well Educated Heart? And she's like, maybe, I'm not quite sure. And I'm like, well, I highly, since she's my older sister, I felt like I couldn't say, go do it now, but I was just like, you know what, if you want to learn more, go to librariesofhope.com. And I kind of just shared with her what I've gotten from it since October, and just how it's, all the stories I get to read, and how it's, warmed my heart. And anyway, it was just kind of, I guess, well, I was surprised that she wasn't very aware of it, since she's been, doing homeschool for so long. But also I was grateful I was able to share it with her. And I hope she goes, checks it out, even if she can just get to the Gordon Neufeld video. Because we were talking, I've been listening to the Hold On to Your Kids, because I put that book on hold, and it took 6 months to get it for audio. And so I'd been listening to that before we went down, and she was telling about one of her sons, and like the stuff she was saying. I was like, there's some stuff in this book that might help, because he talks about peer orientation and because from my standpoint, it felt like maybe he was too peer oriented, but she didn't know how to win him back. So anyway, I kind of mentioned that book to her as well. And so it was nice to be able to share with her, and feel like I was contributing to the to the conversation, or to the trip.
Right. I love that. I love that you got to share that. And it is so heartwarming. And I think at first we're a little nervous, because we don't always have that immediate response from others that we hope to have, or that we have with women who already have experience with the Well Educated Heart, or with these patterns of learning. And so you kind of wonder if, well, should I stop? They're not receiving it super warmly in the very beginning, but you just keep going, and you start to plant those seeds, and then they begin to respond. So anyway, other thoughts, things that are on your heart or mind? Yeah, Lindsay.
I don't know. I have thoughts all over the place. I keep thinking, no, I don't need to share them. But I think the more I learn about Well Educated Heart, I think I'll introduce it differently too. Like listening to Mary and talking about introducing it to other people. In the past, it has always been through the channel of homeschool. Mm-hmm. And I've had such a hard time thinking of it as like, I knew it was something that warmed my heart. I've seen it warm Lori's heart and other people who don't have kids at home. So I know that it's for everybody, but it was like, that was my only way of introducing it. It was like, oh, you homeschool? Try this. And just recently it clicked. It finally clicked. I was a little slow, but it finally clicked that like, this is nothing to do with homeschool. It does, in the fact that like homeschool is just part of our lives, our families. I don't know, I'm still having a hard time putting it into words, but just that this isn't necessarily something people need to like switch over to. It's an addition to whatever you're already doing that will enrich everything else in your life, that will help you to see what it is that you are supposed to be doing. It doesn't mean you need to stop doing, whatever else our friends are doing, that we're like, hey, stop doing that and start doing this. It's like try this. It'll just bring you more clarity throughout everything you do and bring more peace and just this feeling of love and confidence. It's just like an addition to our lives that can enrich every aspect of our lives.
Mhm.
And my other thought, before you guys can comment too much on that, my other thought has just been like, yeah, what is my part? And the thing that just keeps coming to my heart is that I need to prepare my daughter. Like that is my role right now. And so that's just such a tender thing to me, because I just think, well, I want to be there on the campus. I want to be teaching something. I don't know, but in the where I'm at right now, the stage of life I'm in, my job is to prepare the next generation of mothers. And within my home, I have 2 daughters and 2 sons, and those sons are going to have an impact on their wives as well. Like my job right now, and it feels so important all of a sudden, is to just help them recognize beauty and pay attention to all the things around them that our Heavenly Father has placed here to learn from and to find joy in. And anyway, it just feels like again, like I said, this moment of clarity where I'm like, that's my job and this is what it is. And it just feels so good to have that feeling, you know.
I love that. So let me ask you a question, a little follow-up question. How important are academics in that preparation?
It depends. I feel like I used to go back and forth like, well, academics is really important. And then I'd be like, no, it's all about warming our hearts. But it's going to depend as we warm our hearts, and it's an order of things. There you go. Back to Marlene. Then I'm like, oh, there you go. The like pattern of learning that we have to warm our hearts in order to know what things to place on our minds. Like our hearts need to be first and then mind, and it will all come together. Because it's not to say that we shouldn't learn about science or
Right.
these things that are considered academic. It's all heart based if we do the heart first. And so, yeah, academics definitely it's not what we should be focusing on, but it will come into focus as we just focus on the heart things. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think it does. I think that heart foundation is so important. And if that's the only thing you accomplish while your kids are at home, that's fine, because they can move forward with the mind stuff. They can move forward and add those things as they feel prompted to add them. I don't feel like that's our job necessarily. Not that it can't be, but I don't feel like that's the main focus of our job. The main focus of our job is the heart work.
Yeah. And I don't feel like that's my job at all. Like, I feel like, yeah, like I warm their hearts. And if they want to pursue those things, that's great. And whether they pursue it now or later, whenever, that's up to them. And that's going to be my job, is just to teach them to be able to listen to the Spirit so that they know what it is they're supposed to do. And if they want to go to med school or something, then great. But that'll be after they've learned how to discern what it is that they're supposed to do. So my job isn't to teach them how to be a doctor. I don't know how to do that. But just to bring music and art and poetry and these things that we keep talking about, that is what our jobs are as mothers. That's what we do. And to connect with our kids. So maybe they're not quite ready for that. Maybe they're like, my mom's pushing it on me or whatever. But just to like find our kids where they are and to meet them where they are and to just reach their hearts. Because what's the quote? Is it Charlotte Mason? You can't teach a child whose heart you don't have. Like, you can't teach them the heart things even if you don't already have, like have that relationship with them. They need to know that you love them no matter what they're interested in or whatever it is. And then they'll start to listen to those things. And it's not even that you have to like preach and teach those things that you know are important, but just to do them. Again, I'm hearing it like, yeah, I know this is what we keep talking about. This is what we keep learning. But it's like, I have to keep learning it over and over again and having these moments of like, oh, okay, I get it again. But like, we just do it. Like, we learn it. We notebook. We listen to music. We put it on. and it just overflows into our children. It's lovely.
But it's so true, and I wish so much that that is a truth that I could just impart. I could share that with you, and you could hold on to it and have the confidence to do it, because we've been taught for so long something different that it's hard to make that transition. But then when something happens and you have that heart shift, like Lindsay experienced Monday, because I was just sitting next to her when it happened, and it was just like this light bulb went on, and it was this clarity, and it all kind of started falling into place. Like
And it's
all
not
of
the first time it's
pieces.
happened. Like I
No,
feel like
no,
it
no.
happens to me like every 6 months, but it's like, like I got it again.
Well, and you add more every time, don't you think?
Yes, totally. Because this is the first time that it's ever really sunk in that like it really is not a homeschool thing. I could not shake that. It always felt like, why would I talk to somebody about this if they didn't homeschool their kids? And now I don't care what they're doing for homeschool. It has nothing to do with that. Like as they come to know these things, and as you can introduce them to these things of beauty, then they'll probably shift the way they homeschool, because that's just a natural reaction to, as you know, like when somebody, I think we're all members of the same church here. I hate making assumptions like that, but like when you find any truth, you change things in your life, and you're the focus of your life is different. So I found that truth this week, and it's like a paradigm shift. You're like, oh, this way.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and it's really freeing for parents if they could hold on to that idea that really, if you just bring those beautiful things to them and you let them experience those things now and again so that their hearts are softened, that's your goal. The end. I mean, really. And if they don't do anything in high school, it doesn't matter. And I wish I could convince parents of that. Your children can go to college and be fine. They'll be fine if they know how to listen to the Spirit. If they have that foundation and they are able to, have that experience where, all things denote that there is a God, right? Well, not if you don't have eyes open to see all things. If you don't have eyes to see and ears to hear and a heart that feels, you're not open to those things. Those things are closed off to you. But if all you do is open your children to those things and they learn how to see and hear and feel, then, oh my goodness, the whole world opens up to them. And then they're able to receive the direction that they need personally, and they move forward doing whatever it is that the Lord wants them to do. Whatever their work is to do here, they will receive it. And then they have the agency to choose whether they will do it or not. But if you haven't nurtured that heart, then they can't do that. And I just wish I could help you understand that nurturing the heart part is, that's the thing you're working for. And if you can get that, then you're golden, really. Those children are in such a beautiful spot. Yeah, Ida.
I feel like I'm starting to see that more and more. Like all my boys from my oldest son, he's 14 down. He just pops in there. Like, what? You're talking about me? They have all been homeschooled since they started school. But like as we shifted more to like a well-educated heart, like kind of approach to school and just life in general, it's helped him grow in so many ways that it's just cool to see little glimpses of it here and there, like, and just his love for like he loves nature, all things nature, and he loves to learn about them, and like he is constantly coming up with stuff like, oh mom, how about like this and whatever, and I'm like, okay, like where did you learn that from? And he wouldn't have the opportunity to do that if I was so worried about like science and math and all these things. But in this process, he's learning about science and math, and he's also like loving things like, it's so cool. Like he's there in this co-op, and they take some like TJ Ed kind of based, they're called scholar classes, and they're like Lemmy classes. You guys might have heard of those. And they've been taking one about the Civil War, and they have a Georgics class they take, which is kind of like a, you know, self-reliant sort of agrarian class. And there's no like requirements on the kids. Like there's assignments and they can do them if they want, and they don't have to if they don't want to. And it's been so interesting and fun to see, like, they're like super motivated. And I don't say anything to them, and they don't get like grades. They get like a pin, and they get to move up in rank if they, you know, if they do certain things or whatever, you know. One of the things that the Georgics class did is we had a simulation where we had like an EMP hit and electromagnetic pulse, you know, so we didn't have any electricity or water. And so we just did it, you know, it was a surprise for the kids. They didn't know. And so then they had to figure out what to do. And I was like, well, we couldn't turn off our water, but we had no electricity. And so they were trying to figure out all the different things that they could do and how they could cook food. And they were like, okay, we could do this and this. And then 2 days later, our water ended up being turned off because somebody was doing something and our water got turned off for the day. So funny, okay? My son's like, okay. He goes outside, he cuts a grapevine and gets the water from this grapevine and brings it in. He's like, here, Mom, here's water. And I was like, where did that come from? And he's like, it's from a grapevine. I'm like, wait, did you cut our grapevine? He's like, no, it's a wild grapevine. All you do is you cut the vine and you just put a container on there and the water drips out. And it has a little bit of a grape flavor, but it's good water to drink. And I was like, who knew?
Wow.
And just like crazy stuff like that. And he loves to forage. He brought home some oats the other day, some wild oats, and they grow everywhere. And he brings these things home and I look at him like, what is this? And he's like, it's oats. I'm like, okay, cool. What are you going to do with that? He's like, I don't know. I thought I'd maybe eat them, right? But it's really cool because I take this herbal tincture that's made from milky oats, and I didn't know how it was made. And I just started thinking about that. I'm like, well, what can you do with oats? And so I was like looking up how this tincture was made and found out about it. And the oats are not quite like, some of them are ripe, like ready to harvest, and some of them are still green. And they have a milky texture inside. The kernel isn't like hard. And I was like, this is what you use to make milky oats. I'm like, and I started noticing how many oats are everywhere. And it like totally inspired me. And I was like, go harvest a whole bunch of them. We're going to make some tincture because I can make my own now. I know how. And it was so cool. And so he was excited about it. And we were like, he was inspiring me to like learn and dig a little deeper. And it's been so fun, like just all these different crazy things that he's doing. And they're so cool. And he's learning about how to make tinctures and how to like make ointments and how to like preserve foods and like all the different, like there's all the different things involved in that, you know? And it's not just helping him, it's helping me. And like all of his siblings are like getting excited about stuff. Like he harvested these wild onions, and we were at that park the other day when I was talking to you, and the kids were like, look, Mom, the girls, hey, Mom, these are wild onions. Let's pick them. And so they wanted to go harvest them, you know, like, because they knew about it from Parley. And so then we had all these onions and we figured out what to do with them, and we could dry them and make onion powder and freeze them and have wild onions that are super good for you compared to regular onions. And so it's like, that wouldn't be happening if it wasn't like we weren't out in nature. We weren't allowing him to like kind of like to be intentional about letting him pursue things that are really interesting to him and that he's excited about, and he's constantly reading stuff, you know? And I'm like, and creating a space, right? Like I was sharing with my friends. Sorry, guys, I'm going on and on real quick. I was talking to them about a life-giving home and what I read, even though I haven't been in the book discussions, but also Lori, what you've shared in our library. And I like created this space, and it's not fancy, but there's cozy chairs there, and we have tons of books, and they're and the piano's there, and the kids are always over there playing the piano, reading books, like all day long, and you know, off and on different kids, right? And so I was telling my friends, I'm like, it's so great. Like you wouldn't think it was a big deal, but just having these books in this space that's like cozy and comfortable, and there's all of these things here, like they're always here. And so my friend is like, huh, So she went home and rearranged her living room and like got her books in a nice place where there was a cozy chair. She's like, that was so cool. You totally inspired me. And I was like, it's okay. Lori inspired me. I'm just passing along. But like, just like all those kinds of things are happening, just like as you create this environment where you can, you know, nurture hearts. Sorry, I'm done now.
No, you're not done now. You might stop talking right at this moment, but you're not done because you have so much to share. And I love it. That's all so good. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And plus, I love his name. That was my great grandpa's name, was Parley. So I just, ever since I, met your son, I just love that. So really, truly, you might want to introduce him to The Harvester. That is such a great book. Unmute
I
yourself.
think he's read it because
Oh, maybe
that was
so.
one of the books but I'm not sure. He's read a bunch of like, he read Freckles and he
Ooh,
read a
maybe he
couple
did.
others, but I'll have to ask because he'd probably love it.
Yeah, there's just so much there, and it just makes it sound like such an incredible thing to know all about being able to forage and then make all your own, medicines and things. Lindsay.
I was listening to a podcast this morning and talking about comparison, and now I'm forgetting. Oh, it's talking about pride and how, I don't know. Basically, I can't remember all the things they were saying about it, but like not to compare yourself with other people, because then that just makes you feel bad. It's like, what is that? Comparison is the
Thief of joy.
Yeah. So it was just talking more about that. And I thought we really need to remember that too, as we go through things and we hear each other's experiences, and remember to not be like, well, my son's not out foraging for oats. Like, what am I doing wrong? But to look at our kids and be like, they're so excited about things too. It's really exciting. It doesn't matter what they're excited about, but just that, again, meeting our kids where they are and seeing what they are naturally inclined to love, and making sure that we're not comparing our whatever joys to other people's, our successes to other people's successes, and figuring out which one's better. They're all good. It's all good. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. And I love that you said that. And I want you mamas to think about that. If you could do one thing this week, pray about your children, pray about your children, and pray to have eyes to see who they really are. See who they really are so that you can nurture that. Because your job is not really to educate your children. That is not the job, not the way that we see education. That is not. You are to train up your child. But to what? To what end? Maybe, I don't know, but pray to see them for who they are, see their strengths, and then encourage that, because you're going to feel so much better as a mom. You're going to feel so much more successful because you're not fighting to try to get them to do something that is, I'll just use the word unnatural, simply because that's not the thing that he wants them to do right now. And I love that, at least, like, I know that in the LDS church right now, the focus for the children and the youth are to let them pray for themselves and find out what they're supposed to be working on. So wouldn't we as parents be doing even more of that? I don't know. It just really has been on my heart a lot lately, that there's something for them to do. There's someone that they are to become. And if we could help with that, and that could be our focus, rather than these things that the world keeps trying to say, but what about this? What about this? What about that? Have you done this? Have you done that? Where are they in, these other measuring sticks, like Marlene talks about, there's this, that which can be measured, right? And the other which can't. And this is where we work. This is that heart work. This is what mothers were made to do. The world has hardened us and taught us to be something else. But if we can kind of lean back and take a few breaths and trust him, he knows our children so much better than we do. And he wants them to succeed more than we do. And if we could let go of all those other ideas and thoughts and expectations and just ask him, what do you want me to do? What do they need from me? What can I do? And in some cases, in my experience, it's been just stay out of the way. Just stay back. They're fine. They're doing fine. They're listening to me. They're talking to me. We've got this. And at first that was kind of like, ouch. But I want to do the stuff with them. I want to do the stuff for them. And in a lot of ways, the things that we do in the first, I'm going to say 8 years, that stuff really counts. That stuff really mattered a lot. If we made some mistakes there, well, welcome to the big giant club of every single person on the earth, right? None of us did that right. We might have approached right occasionally if we got lucky, but we tried, and he knows what's in our heart. And in all these years since, we've been trying because we love our children and we want what's best for them, right? But he knows, he ultimately knows what they need, and he'll help us to know a little bit of that. He might not tell us the whole thing, but he'll tell us what we can do today to help them. And he'll make up for our weaknesses. He really will. And it's pretty amazing to see that work. So be good to yourselves. See the good that you've done. Ask him to show you that too. And then ask him, what do I do? How can I do this? What do I do today? What can I help them see? What can I encourage in them? And none of us prosper by being told all the things that we've done wrong. That's so easy to do because we worry as parents, that we're gonna miss correcting them, Lindsay.
I think that's where I'm learning too, that like sometimes I feel like I don't know. I don't know. Like I don't have anything like that I to guide me and to help me figure out what it is that I am supposed to be doing for my kids. The Libraries of Hope comes in as we read those things, just little snippets here and there, like that. It teaches us so much about how to live our lives and how to help our children live their lives to maximum joy. So every time I turn to just a story in anywhere in the Forgotten Classics, I'm like, oh, that there's a lesson in there for all of us, and that I can share with my children, and that I can recognize as an important part of their lives. So just for an example, this week, I was reading about Davy Crockett again, and we love Davy Crockett, and my 10-year-old loves Davy Crockett. And so I had come back to it, and I pulled out my notebooking page because I actually have one for Davy Crockett. Pulled it out from last year and was adding to it, and I didn't know last time that he didn't learn how to read until he was like 14 or 16, and he decided, I'm going to try out school. And he didn't, his parents, I don't even think he had parents at this point. He'd run away, was on his own. And he thought, I'm going to go to school for a little bit and see what it's like. So he was self-motivated, went to school. He went for 6 months, learned how to read and write. And he's like, okay, I'm good. Like, I'll learn the rest of it out, exploring. But I just loved that. And I thought my 10-year-old specifically, he just has struggled with reading. It's just not, he just doesn't care. He'd much rather be out chopping wood and helping neighbors and doing these wonderful things that I love that he loves to do. And he is very capable. And that was the other thing with David Crockett. He was a very capable young man. Like, he could take care of himself. When he got married, he was so young, and he took care of his wife and his kids, and just figured things out. Was just a crafty guy, just figured it out. And I thought, that's Max. He could figure stuff out. Like, he has a lot going for him. And the other stuff is just, if you want to learn it, great. I don't know. It just totally brought things in our home into perspective, and those lessons that we can learn just from David Crockett. That there's so many more people. And every time we learn about somebody new or someplace new, we can incorporate that lesson into our lives and help our children incorporate it into their lives. You're muted, Lori.
I love that you find that everywhere in Libraries of Hope. It doesn't matter what you pick up, but you will find something that is heartwarming and that helps you in wherever you're at right then. I do want to take that you're telling about Max a little bit further, Lindsay, just for other moms. Because while while you are receiving that confirmation that it's fine, he's fine, do you receive that all around from people around you, that he's fine, that it's fine that he isn't reading yet?
Probably not, but I become less aware of everybody else's thoughts when I'm super confident because I'm like they could think whatever they want and I probably won't even notice it because I think my son's amazing. So who cares?
Right.
You know? Like when
Right.
we think our kids are amazing people, then it doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks about them.
Nope. And
So-
to them either. For them, they know my mom thinks I'm awesome.
Yes, and I think that is what our kids need to know. They need to know that their mom and dad think they're awesome because their heavenly father thinks they're awesome. And that's what we're trying to teach them. And how do we teach them that? We model it. Like we think they're awesome because they are. They're so awesome. They're amazing little people. And like you said, we just need to stay out of the way and not mess them up.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my mode of operation. So just, ooh, they came so good. Just stay out of the way. So
Yep.
anyway, I encourage you in all the good things that you're doing. You're just wonderful. You're making mistakes. We're all making mistakes. It's part of this experience. That's why there's repentance. And we really need to not be so hard on ourselves. Get to the end of the day, look back and find the good. Do that for yourself. Then pray in the morning, what can I do today? All you need to worry about is today. The rest of it will all work itself out. You just don't need to be worried and sweating about what comes next week or next month. You know, none of that matters. What matters is today. And just do your best. It really does work that simply. Somebody else wants us to think that it's different than that. And wants us to feel all the discouragement and frustration and do all the comparing and all of that. But no, we want our lives to be filled with maximum joy in the good things and in the bad things. We want to be able to see the good that's there and know that in the trials we're being strengthened and that we're not alone, that we're in this together. So I love that too. I love that reminder that we have each other. And I hope you ladies know and have reached out to each other on occasion when you've needed to, because I think each one of you are going to find something from another mom and think, oh, I don't have that right now. I don't have that conviction, or I don't understand that, or I have a similar issue or something. And you feel to reach out. Don't ignore that. Please follow through on that and reach out to each other, because we do need each other. It's just how it works. And it's a beautiful thing when we realize that. Okay, anybody else have any parting comments? Cadence, we haven't been able to hear from you. I don't know if you're somewhere where you just can listen and can't talk. And if so, that's completely fine. And I know that Cassie's usually quiet in the background because of her little ones. So, but we love that you're here. Oh, I'm sorry, Cadence, that you're sick. Oh, I'm sorry. Hope you feel better. And Cassie, look at Cassie in the sunshine over at the beach with her littles outside. That's so great. It's just good being together. And Melanie, I hope your heart's feeling a little bit of healing and a little bit of hope for this relationship with your daughter. So I love all of you. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you again next week.